What's going on, y'all? Your boy Darius back in for another video, and this time I'm here with my full Season 1 review of X-Men 97. That's right, it's been about almost a week since the finale aired, right? So you can expect some spoilers in here. I'm just going to talk a little freely, give my thoughts on X-Men 97. If you noticed, man, as this series was coming out, I was not dropping any reviews for episodes. I was not making any videos on this show. And that's because I was watching, right? While everyone else was watching X-Men 97, I was watching the original X-Men, the animated series from the 90s, right? Because I'd never seen it before. Or rather, I never finished it, right? Like, I think I got to some part in Season 1, like late in Season 1, I just stopped watching. And it didn't capture me, right? I know for years I had to listen and hear people say, "Oh, the X-Men cartoon is goated. It's an all-timer. It's people sung its praises." And when I tried to get into it, I was just like,
I mean, it's all right. Like,
for someone who was born in the 2000s, the show just didn't hit for me, right? Like, I was more of an X-Men Evolution guy, but strangely enough, the 90s Spider-Man show completely hit for me. Maybe it's just because, as you can see back there, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. But when I decided to go through the series again, because X-Men 97 was coming out, I was like, all right, I'm going to go through this whole thing. I'm going to finish this entire series before jumping into 97. And literally, the day before the finale of 97, I finished watching the original series. And then the day where everyone was watching the finale, I was starting to binge 97, man. So I've had to catch up to where everyone is at, right? I did catch some spoilers here and there, but it wasn't too big, in the grand scheme of things. And I just want to say, first off, you don't have to watch the original animated series before watching this, right? You don't. This show does a good job at just being a good X-Men show with, little references back to the old series that if you know about it, it just enhances the experience, right? So that's the first point of order. And I gotta say, in direct comparison to the animated series, I know it came out in the 90s, but the very fact that people would put that series up against some of the greatest superhero cartoons of all time, man, I gotta keep it 100. I gotta compare the two. 97 blows the original series out the water, right? Like, by the end of the original series, I was just like,
overrated as fuck, in my opinion. I mean,
not as good as the Spider-Man series for me, right? But 97 is as good as people said the original animated series was. Actually, it's better. I love this show, right? Like, I took a few days after watching it. I didn't make a review because I just wanted to sit with it. I wanted to sit with it and gather my thoughts and really think about it. And like every day that I woke up, I had this show on the brain. I had X-Men on the brain. That's how good this show is. X-Men, all of a sudden, like, I'm about to go dust off X-Men Legends that I bought, like, months ago because I'd never played it before. It's another, like, X-Men game. People were like, oh, man, you should play this X-Men game. It's really good, Never played it. I bought that months ago. Never got around to touching it. I'm going to touch it now. You best believe I'm going to touch X-Men Legends. I'm going to play that shit. I'll pop that shit. And I'm going to, man, we'll start with the positives, right? The animation, fantastic, right? I saw someone say, hey, Invincible, you need to step your game up when it comes to superhero animation because this shit's better than Invincible. It is. Like, the animation in 97, several moments, all the colors just popping, like all the anime moments of just powers, things like beam struggles and all this shit. Like, it's animation that, like, I wasn't really expecting going in. I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting something obviously better than the original show, right? But this went above and beyond, man. They were flexing the powers, everything. The animation, every conceivable way it hit. There's like the Motendo episode where they get into like the video game. They do all like the video game style animation stuff. That stuff was great, right? So yeah, the animation top notch. And I gotta say, probably the biggest positive coming out of this show for me. I'll give you a little background on me when it comes to the X-Men, right? When it comes to the X-Men, the comics and the movies, right? The lore. My favorite of the team that's typically assembled, right? It's Wolverine. Of course it is, right? The one I hate the absolute most. Actually, the one I hate the most is Angel. But second, right there close to him, is Cyclops. I hate Cyclops in the comics. I've never liked Cyclops. I will give the original series credit. You know, Cyclops, I didn't hate him in that show, even though there were too many points where he was just like, Jade! 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 You know, which he kind of had that in the movies too. But, you know, but I have to give this show credit. I walked away as a Cyclops hater. I walked away saying,
the most dangerous, a beast slayer, a conqueror's conqueror, the goat of all goats, in God mode himself.
They made me they made me a Cyclops. I want to say made me a Cyclops fan, but I definitely appreciated Cyclops a lot more than I ever have, thanks to this show, man. So the writers, right? Bravo to you. You made a Cyclops hater not hate Cyclops really at all. Like, he had some moments he's been a dick, but generally Cyclops was really good in the show. I think the best character in the entire show wasn't Cyclops, it was Magneto. Magneto, my God. It's another thing of this show doing better than what the comics have done for me, right? Like, Magneto in the comics, take him or leave him, you know? Like, I don't hate him, I don't love him. It's kind of just lukewarm with me, kind of yeah, Magneto. In the movies, both versions, Ian McKellen and Michael Fassbender, Magneto, that's my guy right there. That's my guy right there. You get to this show, Magneto's the shit. He just is. Like, something about the movies and animation, the shows, they know how to handle Magneto better than they do in the comics, man. Magneto was the MVP of this entire season. Another big positive of the show, just throughout nearly every episode, it's the writing. Right, I know there's a big controversy about the head writer, right, the showrunner, whatever he was, Bo DeMaio, right, getting fired like the day before the premiere, right, and no one has found out why, no one has found out what he did. The most you get is, you know, rumors, people who have like worked with him on other stuff before saying that he was a headache to work with, and so the theory is that potentially he was not pleasant to be around during the making of this show, and maybe he said something to the wrong person and then he got fired. Who knows? But I will say Bo and the rest of the writing team wrote their asses off when it came to this show, because this show, it took X-Men to levels that the original series didn't go to, that even the movies didn't go to, right? It brought you the X-Men, the concept of the mutants, and like the different allegories, right, for mutants, whether that be, you know, LGBT, whether that be race-wise, you know, black, white, whatever. It took all that stuff, just blended it in seamlessly and perfectly, right? And the writing, specifically when it came to Magneto, the lines, the quotes this man was dropping like he was Bane. Like, it was the stuff. It was stuff of beauty, man. Like, every time Magneto said something, I was just like, talk, Magneto, man. And this show definitely wasn't, like, I'm not gonna say this is a show made for kids or it's not made for kids. It's definitely made for, I'd say, I don't know, like, it's made for everybody. There's something in there for everybody, but it's definitely not kid-centric. There's definitely some things that go on. I'm just like, hey, I don't know if kids should be seeing this, whether it's just horrific imagery or some very sexiness. And, like, you know, you don't see no, you know, full penetration, shit like that. But, like, take, for example, Rogue and Magneto. You know, they get real close, you know, in this season. And that's a thing that in the comics, the Rogue and Magneto relationship, can't stand it. I absolutely hate it, right? They do it better here than they ever did in the comics, right? In the comics, I always hated it, not only because of the age difference. Like, this is weird, but I suppose you could say that's the case with Wolverine and anybody he ends up with, like Jean, right? But I've always hated in the comics because I was just like, yeah, I understand. You can touch him, right? His magnetism powers protects him from her absorption powers. But in the comics, this man has been your enemy for years. Right, you've been fighting this mutant terrorist for years, man. He's hurt teammates and friends of yours, and then you're just gonna decide to jump on his dick? Excuse me, Rogue? Get out of here with that.
Nasty bitch.
But in this show, it feels like the writers were conscious of that. They were like, looking back at the original series, there's no way we could justify Rogue jumping on Magneto's dick after the things he did in that show. So they smartly had it that it happened before Rogue ever joined the X-Men. So thought that was cool. The relationship dynamic was it was all right. You know, the love triangle with Gambit in there, and my God, Gambit. Episode 5. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. I think it's called Remember It. It's the Genosha episode, which apparently Bo was he kind of did it. He wrote it with the Pulse nightclub shooting, which happened in Orlando, where I live. You know, however many years ago that was downtown. And I definitely started to get that. Like, as soon as the Sentinel showed up to Genosha, as everyone was partying, having fun, I was just like, oh, this is some, like, Pulse nightclub shit. Oh, this is about to be bad, and a lot of people died. Gambit was one of them. And the way he went out, they had me crying, man. I didn't think I'd ever watch an X-Men show and start crying. But they did it, man. As far as drawbacks, as far as negatives, because I've been singing this show's praises for, like, 13 minutes straight. The biggest thing is I think the pacing is not the best. They very much rush through a lot of arcs. Like, it's only 10 episodes, right? And they go through, like, famous comic arcs that would have taken, like, several issues. They go through some of those in, like, a span of 3 episodes, right? Like the Madeline Pryor and Sinister stuff, right? They go through some other, like, comic things. I can't name off the top of my head right now, but that's, like, the big one I remember. And it's just like, slow down. I at a point, I was just like, you're going through a lot right now. I think just slow down. And I think because they were very much going through a lot, when you got to something like, say, Life Death with the whole Storm, after she loses her powers, she goes to Sea Forge and they end up together, and the big owl bird nightmare demon, you know, who Storm's fears and her thoughts about her not being immune anymore and all that stuff. It was very undercooked. It was like the weakest episode of them all, right? Like, her relationship with Forge did not buy because it was undercooked. They didn't give it enough time. All of a sudden, Forge is like, oh, I love you, Aurora. And I'm just like, what? This is like, I don't care if you've been together off screen for months. I haven't seen any of that. I haven't seen any development, any development whatsoever. I haven't seen. All I've seen is just, oh yeah, these two are in the same place now. Evidently, they've been around each other for a while. They're in love now. I'm just like, okay. Another big negative. My God, Sunspot. I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to make Sunspot like the Jubilee this time around. Like in the original series, Jubilee, the first episode, you know, she's like the character that introduces us into everything, right? Like, she's the outsider. You know, she's got to get caught up to speed with everything going on with all the X-Men and the mutants and all the other stuff, right? They have Sunspot sort of take that role in this show, and he is absolutely unbearable. I couldn't stand him, right? I know he had his whole thing where, like, he didn't want to tell his mom that he was a mutant. He didn't want to tell his parents he was a mutant. But he was unbearable, constantly whining, constantly talking about how rich he was. Just every time he was on screen, I wanted to change the channel, but then I remembered I can't just flip the channel because this is a streaming service. I gotta click out of this shit and go watch something else. Yeah, I could not stand Sunspot. I couldn't give a damn about him and his relationship with Jubilee. Didn't buy it. Didn't care for it. Every time he was on the screen, I wanted to, in the words of Chiseled Adonis, I wanted to call one man and one man only.
This man can't be happy, Cole.
But those negatives, right, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't hold the show down very much, right? Like, they stick out to me, but as a whole, it's not a perfect show. Like I've said, I point out the negatives. It's not a perfect show at all. It is probably the greatest thing Marvel has put out since Spider-Man No Way Home. You could argue Loki is better. I wouldn't fight you on that. I really wouldn't, because Loki was phenomenal. You know, season 2 of Loki, phenomenal, right? I won't fight you on that. But for me personally, this has been my favorite thing since Spider-Man No Way Home, and I desperately hope that Spider-Man gets the X-Men 97 treatment, right? The 90s series Spider-Man, I feel like more than even this show. Yeah, I know it ended with Professor X dying, getting sent off with the Shi'ar or whatever, and that was it, right? 90s Spider-Man series literally ended. We had no unresolved questions about Mary Jane, what happened to her. She's floating around in some dimension. I think Spider-Man took off looking for her in some dimension. And I know they show both of them in this show, like during the finale, that they show that, you know, hey, eventually Peter does find MJ, but I want to see that shit. I want to see what happened, all right? I want Spider-Man 90, what would it be, Spider-Man 98, I guess, Spider-Man 97, whatever you're going to call it, I want it, right? I want more shows like this. Give me a Daredevil show. Daredevil originally was supposed to get a show back in the 90s. Never happened. Give me a Daredevil animated show, right? Bring back Avengers, Earth Mightiest Heroes, man. Like, the show's phenomenal. Can't wait for the later seasons. I know once season 3 hits, it's going to be interesting because Bo DeMaio already worked on season 2. I believe he already had stuff prepared for season 2, so they kind of already know where to go based on what he did. So really, season 3 is going to be the real test of, okay, is this going to maintain the same level of quality? We shall see. But X-Men 97 is an absolute banger of a show. It's been on my mind ever since I watched it. I'm going to probably watch it several more times. It's that good, man. It's a solid 9 out of 10 show. Love it, man. Cannot sing its praises higher, all right? But the important thing is not what I think. It's what you think. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of X-Men 97. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Who was your favorite character? What was your favorite moment? My favorite moment, I forgot to mention, Wolverine stabbing Magneto. Because in the original series, he ain't stabbed nobody. He only stabbed robots. He never stabbed people, actually. This man in this show stabbed Magneto. You saw the blood. And then Magneto proceeded to rip out his adamantium. So, which is an iconic moment from the comics. So yeah, let me know all that stuff in the comments down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because I'm on the road to 600 subscribers and I can't get there without you. Make sure you hit that notify bell so you know every time I upload a new video, and click that thumbs up like button, man. It looks like this. Yeah, like that. Yeah. I just did a thumbnail thing right there. Click that, man, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.